Okay, it is exactly 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and today is Monday, August the 24th, 2020, and welcome to week 2 of Drugs and Crime. I'm Richard Wright, your professor for these next, 4 weeks now coming up, or rather 3 weeks coming up at the end of this week. So let's share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to just scroll all the way down to, that rubrics are in each written assignment. So we are at lecture 3, and we have 3 more to go, the halfway point. And then at the end of this lecture, I will place here. And one thing I do want to let you guys know is that at the end, and listen to me good, of week 4, at the end of week 4, I will no longer accept assignments from weeks 1, 2, or 3, because that's the midway. And so what I'm saying is that you'll get points taken off unless there's extenuating circumstances. However, I will not allow students to bring assignments in after week 4. And actually, to be honest with you, after 7 days for week 1, week 2, and week 3, you're not able to bring them in anyway. That's why I say that, and that would be the beginning of week 4. But I'm actually going to give you until the end of week 4. Now, my students come in usually the 5th week or the 6th week and want to know, can they do weeks 1 and week 2? And the answer is no. And also, students will consistently try to submit discussion posts after the discussion forum has ended. We went over that during the open house. So the answer to that is they're not going to be allowed as well. Okay, so with having said that, let's get into the course calendar. And here it is. Okay, so here's where we are today. So the live lecture tells you what your reading assignments are. Your reading assignments are, and then your live lecture right here. Your initial post, social policies and trends, will be due tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard, and your reply post Saturday the 29th at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then your course project, which will be the second one, will be due on the 30th. So you're only going to have 2 more course projects after that. And then, of course, your quiz, that's timed. Okay. And then I'm going to stop right there. All right. But I do want to remind you, as I always do, that the course ends on the 18th. So that means that, as I said already, weeks 1, 2, and 3 have to be in by the end of week 4. That means weeks 4, 5, and 6 have to be in no later than this. Again, you will still lose points unless you present to me extenuating circumstances. I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to wonder. It's up to you to let me know. As I said during the course of the open house, to remind you how things operate here. As I said, when I shared my story with you, it is that I have a lot of empathy for working with you. but I gotta know. Let me know what problem there is. A few students have reached out to me and let me know. Matter of fact, one student let me know about the hurricane, a storm that's coming down through Louisiana and in the Texas area. And, so I know what's happening with them, but I also remind them to attach it to the assignment when it's late, so I'll know because I can read it. Because when I'm in the grade book, I don't remember what the emails say, and I'm not going back and forth. All right, so that's the calendar. So now let's close the calendar up and let's go back to the course homepage. Oops, not course messages, course home. And let's take a look at our announcement for the week. So this week we're going to deal with policies and social trends, mental health, and criminal behavior. Chapter 3 and 4 of Drugs, Crime, and Justice. I did send you the PowerPoints to go along with that to help you prepare for the week. And then we're gonna go over the policy and social trends, drug use, abuse, addiction, theories of addiction, and drug identification activity we're going to complete with. And then reminder about your discussion assignment, social policies and trends that I said earlier, and I'll say it again, is due tomorrow night, initial post. Reply post Saturday night. Finally, complete the course project, Heroin and Crime, which is part 2 of this project, and then the quiz, which, as you know, is timed. And you know what my motto, adversity is the springboard to success, is all about. I remind you again to utilize the Drugs and Crime course guide. Clicking on it, it helps you with each week's assignment. So you're at module 3, you could go through and it'll give you some tips. So it's a benefit that we put together utilizing the team that put together the course to help you become successful. Remember, my goal and aim is to have each of my students to achieve student success. That's why I make myself so available, but and it's up to you then to follow up from that. So utilize the Drugs and Crime course guide. It's a tool that can help you very much. So the course project, which is basically your written assignment, is this week entitled Heroin and Crime. So you've heard me say already that there is a correlation between crime and drugs. If you haven't heard me say it, I'm saying it now, and I'll say it quite a few times during the course of this program, because of the fact that it is so important that you connect the two. That there are a lot of individuals who commit crime to support their habits, and those can be primarily property crimes, where burglary, robbery, theft, things of that nature, strong arm robbery, and any of those kind of crimes. Sometimes violent crimes are committed because of the fact that someone's in the way of them getting what they need to support their habits. So you're going to learn through this course that the laws that we pass, that no matter how often we continue to pass law after law after law, it is not going to change individuals until we get to the core of the matter, and that is to be able to allocate the funds to take care of the drug problems. And there are people who are more difficult than others to get off of drugs, But the point of the matter is that it is in the best interest of us as people to get these individuals freed of drugs and to get them to a point where they can um, reintegrate into society and function as a positive contributor rather than a negative contributor. But the bottom line is that law enforcement, and you'll see this coming up in the weeks to come, are starting to deal with um, issues of looking at the drug problem not just as a crime issue, but as a serious health issue, and that it is adversely affecting families and our community as a whole. So today, your assignment is to follow these details that are written up concerning the amounts that are spent on the drug heroin, and deal with the dealers, the wholesalers, the cartels, and all the organizations that provide this. So you're going to conduct some research regarding the substance abuse and criminal behavior. I've kind of started talking to you about that already. And you will know that all of your course projects are independent, and you're going to conduct research. Remember, utilizing credible resources. No Wikipedia, please. It says in here anyway. A minimum of 3 pages, double space, not single space, please. APA formatted. And those of you who are not familiar with APA, I do recommend reaching out to a tutor. And when I see you're having trouble with it, because at this stage, you've only written one paper, and that was the one that you just submitted yesterday. And I will be able to see how you guys are doing. So it's important for you to recognize and understand the importance of citing your sources in the body, and then make sure that with those 3 minimal pages that you don't just have like one citation on each page. The citations, remember, support the statements that you contain in your papers, because you're not experts, but you're going to find sources of information from experts who have gone through and provided research concerning the material, and you're going to utilize those in your paper. So you're going to discuss these 4 bullet points: the connection between substance abuse and criminal behavior, of course, the relationship between heroin use and criminal behavior, the relationship between drug use, including abuse of prescription painkillers. You're going to learn something about that, that there is a connection between painkillers and ultimate heroin and other opioids, and the crime at the user level, including human trafficking, burglary, robbery, and I already told you about those kinds of things. Have you noticed that burglary, robbery, and even gang-related crimes are related to property, because these individuals are relating to protecting their territory to distribute these drugs. Then the final part of it is going to deal with the education and prevention programs at the local level to reduce heroin use and respond to heroin overdoses. What do we do? We'll talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes. Include at least 3, and I always tell my students, don't get caught up on the 3. Meet the 3, but reliable resources, reliable sources, and not your textbook. And we already say in here again, do not rely on information from Wikipedia. I have had a few people in previous classes. Inevitably, somebody misses this point. So be sure to include citations to cite your sources. I've already said that. A cover page, reference pages as well, properly done APA style. And then if you need help, I already told you about the tab 3 of the drugs and crime course. So let's look at the rubric. So it's due in 6 days, which is the 30th of August, 40 possible points. And here is the rubric. So you'll get 30 points if you've satisfied this content, and I read through them. And then a minimum of 3 pages, as I already said, double spaced. And then your grammar, and then 3 credible sources. You'll lose points for that if you don't have those 3 credible sources. And it tells you again what is in there, and then finally your APA requirements, and it reminds you of things over and over that I already say, like Wikipedia, like citations in the body, and citations throughout the paper, reference page, proper spacing, and paragraph indents. You're in college, so you should be writing papers grammatically correct. All sources are properly cited, and then proper formatted reference page, cover page, and so forth. Okay, that's what you're going to see. And if you fall short of that, I'll let you know. I'll let you know in my comments that you'll see. Then the discussion post, you already know what to do with regarding this. The war on drugs versus treatment and rehabilitation. You know which one I favor, but don't worry about what I favor, because I justify what I favor based upon the years and years and years of experience of dealing with individuals, and some personal experiences that I had in my own family regarding drugs and the effects that it can have on the family. So your initial post, of course, is due tomorrow night, and your reply post, where you compare and contrast the comments of another individual and include that. And then it says be sure to include proper citations. You can, again, I appreciate it, but I don't require it. I relax that a little bit for you. Then, of course, your quiz, which is timed. It's a 30-minute quiz. You have one opportunity, and you don't need notes or stickies or anything of that nature to complete this. You should have studied the materials. And I've said it before, but there are students who insist, even now, there are some students who will take the quiz the first day because they think that's the easiest assignment. Actually, it's not, because of the fact that you need to be familiar with the materials in the lecture, as well as, that's why I give you the PowerPoints to help you study. What you read as well is what's contained in the module itself. And actually, if you complete your written assignment first, that is this course project, it will help you in terms of dealing with some of the questions. Okay. And then, of course, your live classroom phrase that I give you. And of course, you know that's due Sunday as well. And that each day that you're late, you're going to lose a point till you max out all the points. And that's it. Okay. So now let's go back and let's get into the lesson content. So we're going to deal with actually these two topics, the policy and social trends of drug use, abuse, addiction, and the theories of drug use, abuse, addiction, and activity, some of which I agree with and some of I don't, but I explain why. Excuse me. So throughout our history, we have decided initially to um, declare war on drugs, and it goes back to the 70s actually, uh, and when I say the 70s, it formulated in the 70s, but it really got heavier in the 80s. And so at all levels, the federal and the state have passed laws dealing with drug-related behavior and have sought to control substance abuse or to reduce the criminal activity related to drug use and abuse. So in the 80s, it just busted wide open, and it became us against them, a war on drugs, where crack down on drug-related criminal behavior and activity. And state and federal laws were passed that impose mandatory sentences for drug-related crimes. And the reason for that is because of the impact that it has on our community, and that this was supposed to be something to decrease drugs and drug-related crimes. And so what happened is that the ones who really started to feel the brunt of that are those who were what we call those in possession, as it says, of powder and crack cocaine. Now, those, as we should be aware of, and I talked about this last week, is that crack cocaine, and then you heard the video, Freakonomics of crack cocaine dealing. Crack is a very inexpensive high, and what it did was it created a situation where individuals who could not afford to get to things like heroin or any of those types of drugs were getting what we call a cheap high. And you could pay $5 and you can get what they call a nickel bag, or 10 for a dime. And it's like the same thing as marijuana. And so what happened is that um, uh, people started committing crimes on a higher level to support those habits. Robberies, burglaries, and thefts increase. Types of crimes that we studied last week in my introduction to criminal law. Those of you who are in that class know what I'm talking about or have taken it. So it was thought that, as it says, that the people who use or abuse are addicted also engage in certain criminal activities. And that's the key thing. So when you become addicted to something, it has control over your free will. You don't possess the capacity to say no, because your whole will to say no is taken away, and you'll do anything and everything possible to get that fix, or to get that next high, as individuals will continue to go forth. And so as a result, individuals are arrested for these drug-related crimes. I tell you the story about a young man that I represented who was guilty of many burglaries. And I represented him after he had committed about 3 or 4 burglaries. He had been arrested, been to jail. I think he even had been to prison. And on this occasion, where he committed this third group of crimes, I told his family not to get him out on bail. Now, I usually recommend getting a person out on bail, but the reason why I told them this is because what's going to happen is he's going to go back to committing these crimes. It's not that they don't know any better. It's they're not controlled. Their free will to say no is gone. And so what this young man did was his family did contrary to what I said, and they got him out on bail, had him at home for a few days. And they had kept an eye on him and so forth and so on. They didn't have him like handcuffs to the bed or none of those kind of things. The bottom line is he got out of the house and he went across town to commit another burglary. Why was he doing it? We already know, because he was getting something he could sell or pawn or get rid of to help him to buy drugs that he needed. Well, in this occasion, he ended up being chased by the police, and the police chased him across a busy highway. He had gone across that busy highway to get there, but this time he tried to go back, follow his own steps back, cross the busy highway, and never made it. He was hit by several vehicles, including trucks, and he was killed. But the reason why he was killed was not because he was a burglar. The reason he was killed because his drug habit forced him to commit these crimes to support. So it says here that in addition, there may be underlying reasons why a person uses or abuses drugs and then engages in criminal behavior. And it says, thus, if we can identify the reasons why a person uses or abuses drugs, perhaps we can then reduce the drug-related criminal behavior. Hello, somebody. That's what I talk about the whole time of the course. And so there are some theories that don't make sense, but there are theories that are utilized dealing with individuals who commit criminal behavior and drugs. And so there are three basic models that we're going to focus on, and you'll need to remember these, and you'll find these in your PowerPoints and in your reading more details. There's what we call the choice, the disease, and the self-medication. Okay, so the choice model says that a person decides or chooses to use substance and therefore can simply choose to stop using it. If you believe that's true, then you also believe the tooth fairy is true as well. And it's just not true based on what I said. It's the same if a person is sick with the flu. They have to be cured of that. Otherwise, they can continue with it and it can progress to pneumonia. Well, the same thing here with drug addiction is not a crime, it's a sickness. It's actually a health issue, and you're going to learn as we continue to deal with each week that we head towards the level where it is an epidemic proportion. Now, put that together with the pandemic that we're dealing with, and it's catastrophic for a person who is a individual who uses drugs. And so that choice method that they can quit whenever they get ready and they can just say no. Sounds good, but in practicality and in real life application, it just ain't so. So the next one is the self-medication model. And all it says is that people use legal and illegal drugs to compensate for problems. In other words, that they use it to hide out, to escape. In the same way as, people do alcohol to escape from reality. And so what happens in reality is that it makes it worse. Anxiety, depression, or mental illness is involved. Now, let's give you the double dynamite. I already told you about the pandemic and the drugs, but think about a person who's a drug addict that has mental illnesses as well. These are sick as sick. And so their mental illness don't control, they don't control them making good decisions and cause them to make bad decisions. And it's more complicated and it becomes enhanced by the drugs. And so anyway, to say that people do things to escape the problems, okay, we agree with you. Now what? Now what? So then that means we need to treat not just for drugs, but we also need to increase our mental health treatment. That is probably one of the #1 issues that whenever I talk to professionals who are clinicians, they say, hey, look, these people are sick, and they're extremely sick because they're not making good choices. And it's because of the fact that their body is craving this drug, but also that their minds are inadequate to help them make proper decisions. And so what the medication does is it seems to eliminate one problem, but creates multiple problems that are left behind. So is that really help? To me, that's making a bad situation worse. Finally, we come to one that makes sense. The disease model of addiction is based on the idea, and I'm reading it straight from what's in here, the idea that addiction is a result of chemical or biological issues. And that is absolutely true. And that if you're going to be punishing people for drug-related crimes without addressing the reasons or the underlying causes of these uses and addictions, you're not going to change the pattern. You're not going to positively effectuate change as far as recidivism, because people are going to just continue to do the same thing because you haven't really gotten to the core or the root of the problem. And that is essential when we're dealing with this issue. And so there are public health officials and medical professionals said treatment should be part of any sentence for drug-related convictions. Now, I'm not talking about individuals who produce it on mass levels. Primarily, what you will discover, even individuals who might possess high amounts are also subjected to the parties that have them distributing the drugs, because they'll give them a sample and hook on it, and they'll use it, and then they will distribute it to make money for other individuals. So there is somewhere lurking in most cases, people don't just look at it as a business. It's at least not at the level generally that people are arrested on a day-to-day basis, but they look at it from the standpoint of using the sale and distribution of drugs to support their habits. And so it takes us back to the point is that we must treat these individuals. We must rehabilitate these individuals, and we're gonna talk about that later on in the course. And then there's a great article down here that was written called Substance Abuse and Mental Illness, the Challenges for Interventions, But realize this, good people, is that as you are going through this course, and future law enforcement individuals recognize the place that drugs has in crime, where you find most criminals committing crime. There's drugs somewhere lurking. I promise you, you'll find that out. I learned that as a professional representing individuals in my many years. Like asking, why? What led you into this? And you will ultimately find that someone introduced them to trying it, or the abuse of prescription drugs, because of the fact that that's why and you'll hear this later on in the course, that painkillers are extremely dangerous. They're as dangerous as the drugs that are illegal themselves, because what they do is they open the door for the individuals to want to reach a certain high. And the way that things work with drugs is you reach a certain high and then you want to get there or go higher. So what happens is people overdose. And so then law enforcement now is dealing with this through the use of Noxalone and Narcan. Narcan is one of them. So anyway, you can take a few minutes in your own time, and the theory that drug abusers can stop or control their use but choose not to, type in your answer and then go next, and it will tell you the answer to what we have here. Okay, so what we have to realize in summary is that there is definitely a need for funding to rehabilitate these individuals by providing health treatment for these individuals, whether it's mental health and or drug abuse, because of the fact that and you'll hear me talk about this later, is that, let me say this, we could pass all the laws we want to with all the cartels and things like that, but if there is no market where individuals, for example, are cured or treated adequately, and it is no easy job, as you'll discover in weeks to come, and you'll discover in your research even now about what you're doing with your relationship between heroin and crime. And so I want to say good night to you guys. I want to conclude by taking you, I'm going to stop sharing and go back into the classroom, and I want to give you a key phrase, and that key phrase is heroin addiction. That's what I want you to give me to get your points. I'm not going to repeat it because it's very clear what the key phrase is. So with that, I'm going to say good night to each of you, and reach out to me if you have any questions about anything that I said in the lecture. Reach out to me about any concerns that you might have with the assignment. And please, if you have technical issues, don't reach out to me. Reach out to PSC. PSC's number is at the bottom of every page, that you can see it. Actually, if you go into, I'm going to go back into the classroom for a minute. If you go like to the bottom of this page, here it is, personal support system right here, and it's 24/7 to be able to help you. All right, So I'm going to say again, good night to you. I'll see you guys next week at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Stay safe out there. The pandemic is not going in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. And then the other thing I want to encourage those of you who are dealing with the storm down in the southern part of the country, stay safe. Keep you guys in my prayers, and look forward to seeing you next week at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Good night.